So I'm coming on again very quickly for those who firstly didn't hear me the first time, but also because I want to download this or try and reshare it again, because I think it's important that you guys understand why I track my cycle and how to track your cycle. So here we are again. I'll try and go a little bit faster this time. But yeah, so a couple of reasons why I track my cycle. The first one is for health. So, you know, our menstrual cycles are our fifth vital sign. So the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecology, and also I think it's the American Association of Pediatricians, they classify the menstrual cycle as our fifth vital sign. So understanding what's going on with our menstrual cycle can be a huge indicator of what's going on with our overall health. So when we say vital signs, we're talking about blood pressure, we're talking about breathing rate, we're talking about kind of heart rate, all of these key markers that tell us whether we're healthy or not, or what's going on with our bodies. And our menstrual cycle is the exact same. So if we know what our normal menstrual cycle is and that starts to change, that's an indicator there might be something going on. Maybe we're stressed, maybe there's something going on with the thyroid, there might be a menstrual cycle condition going on, such as endometriosis or maybe PCOS, or maybe we're kind of overtraining and underfueling as well. It's also really important that we understand what our cycles are like and what day of our cycle we're on, so that when we go to our GP or our healthcare provider, we're able to tell them what day we are. They'll often ask you, okay, when was the day of your last period? That, you know, you'll be able to discuss any cycle symptoms that you might be having as well. When we talk about kind of one of the other reasons, which is later on, about fertility awareness, knowing what day of your cycle you're on is going to be really, really important to know what hormones to get tested on what day. So again, normally you get your kind of estrogen tested on day 3, and then your progesterone, they say day 21, but really it's kind of like seven days, I think, before your next period is due, and that's to check your progesterone levels as well. So knowing when those days are is going to really help you and your doctor identify when you should be getting your hormones tested if you need to as well. So health is really the main one of why I track my menstrual cycle, and then also why I kind of encourage my clients to do the same as well. The second reason is training. So, and again, for anyone who's just joining this time, I did do this at 8, but Instagram is letting me post it, which is weird. So I'm going to try and get this one up again. But anyway, that's the background. So the second reason why I track my cycle is training. So I'm a huge advocate of phase-based training or cycle-based training or cycle syncing, depending on, you know, what kind of name you're going by, but essentially it's training in sync with your menstrual cycle. It can seem very complicated and overwhelming, but it's actually really not. Once you as an individual understand kind of what phase of your cycle you're on, and the overall maybe goal that you're trying to achieve through your kind of block of training, it's actually quite easy to adjust it based on that. And that's what I do with all of my clients, and with myself. So I would get them to start tracking their cycle, see where they are, and then we'd start to adjust training based on where they are in their cycle. And I would check in with them at the start of each session. Okay, you're phase 2, perfect, that's gonna go. Are you feeling good? Great, that's gonna go heavy or hard. Or I have you down as phase 4 now. How are you feeling? Are you tired, or are you feeling good? And we kind of adjust it based on that. I kind of use a color-coded system as well, so we can kind of adjust the intensity or maybe just the type of training that someone's doing based on that. But essentially, we have different phases of our cycles and different hormones throughout our cycle. So the first half of our cycle has much higher levels of estrogen, which tends to be better suited for better recovery, better muscle building, better strength building. It's good for like power and speed work. So typically we try and get that sort of stuff done, or I try and get that sort of stuff done during the first half of my cycle. And then for me anyway, when I start moving into the second half of my cycle, I tend to get a little bit more fatigued, specifically in the run up to my period. So when I'm in phase 4, that premenstrual phase. And that's, for me, I give myself permission to down tools a little bit. I'll do more yoga, I'll do more kind of walks, do more easy runs when I can run. I can't run at the moment, but when I can run, I kind of do easier runs if that's kind of light enough for me. And really just try and focus on recovery. I work on technique, so if I do maybe want to do a gym session, it's more about kind of core control, making sure my form is good, maybe trying to like strengthen that range of motion a little bit more. But But yeah, and actually studies have shown that, specifically from the strength training point of view, that if you train more when your estrogen is high in that kind of follicular phase of your cycle, so you're training maybe like 5 times a week, which I know might be a little bit unrealistic for a lot of us, but still it's kind of interesting number, 5 times a week versus once a week in that second half of your cycle, you actually get better outcomes from strength and hypertrophy, so muscle building, in comparison to that kind of regular 3 times a week throughout the whole of your cycle. The other reason why as well it's good for training is it helps you see if maybe you're overdoing it or not fueling correctly. So say, for example, and actually this has happened to me recently, where I was tracking my cycle and then I just didn't ovulate. So like no changes in cervical mucus, no changes in my temperature tracking, which just kind of tells me if I've ovulated, and my cycle was a little bit longer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take that as a sign that I didn't ovulate. That sometimes just happens, but I'm pretty sure it happened for me because I was really stressed, was training a lot, was trying to do a lot. There's obviously lots of things going on in the background at the minute with different events and kind of, you know, getting go with the flow, up and out there, loads of really exciting things, but that obviously does a bit of a number on your stress levels, and I'm a little bit of a stress bunny, so I basically took that as a sign. So this month, and again, because I'm not training for anything in particular at the moment, I'm just training to feel good, I'm just giving myself permission to drop that intensity down. So I'm focusing more on yoga and going for walks and kind of doing it to feel good and move to feel good, rather than to try and get like hit a particular goal or get stronger or anything like that. Doing it more for social reasons and that kind of stuff, and really focusing on all of that restorative style of exercise. And I'm going to give myself a cycle and then see how I get on this month, and kind of go from there. So it does have to kind of link back up into that health icon as well, or that health reason, to kind of say, okay, am I actually healthy right now, and am I really going to get anything out of my training? Because if you're not healthy and if you're not actually producing your hormones, your performance is going to drop, your health is going to drop. So like you're just treading water and or going backwards. So anyway, that's one of the big reasons I do, why I track my cycle, and why I encourage my clients to track my cycle as well. The other reason is from fertility awareness. So again, you know, I'm doing a talk tomorrow on how to track your cycle, and we're going a lot into the kind of biomarkers that are used in fertility awareness, and it's something that I'm getting trained in at the minute. It's not going to be specific to fertility awareness. It may be useful, as in if you are someone who's trying to conceive, you might get use out of it, but it's not going to be geared towards that, nor is it going to be geared towards fertility awareness as a contraceptive method at all. Again, it can be useful to know your fertile and non-fertile periods, but that's a whole different thing. And if anyone's interested in that, get in contact with me, but that's not what the talk will be about, but you may find it interesting for that. But you know, we spend a lot of our life, if you are in a heterosexual relationship, trying not to conceive, and everything's kind of built around that. So, you know, taking contraception, whatever that might be, and then say, for example, you do want to try to conceive, and then all of a sudden it's a lot more difficult than you thought. Now, some people conceive right away, other people don't, and there's a lot more different factors that come into it, but I'm a big believer in, again, based on kind of what I'm kind of learning at the moment and researching myself at the moment, that being aware of what's actually going on with your menstrual cycle and when you might be fertile or not fertile is a big kind of help towards that. So understanding what's going on with your cycle can kind of help maybe identify if there is something going on that you might need to go get extra help with to get sorted before you kind of try to conceive or anything like that. And again, it is a way of contraception. There are different ways you can do it. So there's different kind of femtech apps out there, and there's different kind of methods that you can use that can kind of help you have a natural form of contraception if that's something that you're interested in, and you don't want to use hormonal contraception, or you don't want to be on the coil as well. The other reason then is managing my energy and my relationships, and this is kind of a big area. And again, I think this is why this first video didn't process, because I tagged the Red School in it. So they have something up with Instagram. I think they're trying to still sort it out at the minute, where I didn't even tag them, but I just mentioned them in the comments, and I think it's not processing that to protect its users. But anyway, whatever, I don't know what it is. But The Wild Power by the Red School and Maisie Hill's book Period Power talk a lot about kind of the seasons of your cycles, and it goes a lot more into kind of self-care and the spirituality aspect of menstrual cycles. So, you know, I'm very much a fan of yang and yin and getting that good mix of kind of more scientific based stuff versus more kind of spiritual based stuff, and trying to manage kind of pushing yourself with making sure that you're recovered, and that's really kind of how to make sure that you're in that kind of optimum state of kind of health and well-being. and or performance if that's something that you're interested in. So understanding kind of for me when I might be feeling really good in my cycle and when I might be feeling kind of tired, or maybe I might be feeling a little bit more self-conscious or kind of down on myself, or not really kind of in the mood to kind of be sociable out there. And I see that you're on the call, so yeah, anyone, I mentioned this in the last talk that I did, so anyone in the swim club, you've probably known me to be like, yeah, I'm gonna come, like, and last week I'm like, yeah, definitely there on Friday, and then all of a sudden I'm like, actually I'm not gonna get up and go into cold water at 6 a.m. To go for a swim, even though that might have been something that when I was agreeing to it in kind of when I'm maybe ovulating and I'm feeling really good and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that and that's exactly what I want to do, then I actually get to that point and maybe further on in my cycle and it's the last thing I want to do. So understanding that can mean that I don't necessarily overbook myself, so that I can manage my energy a little bit better. As well, for me, for my work, I do a lot of presentations and talks, and when I'm in my phase 4, I find it really hard to speak. So my foot is my hand is my foot, my left is right is left. I have the info in my head, but it doesn't come out very coherently, and so trying to recognize that, and I have in my calendar when I'm going to be in phase 4, so that I can maybe try and avoid doing too much around that stage. Now, sometimes it just happens and you can't really kind of plan for that stuff, but I maybe try to avoid doing my harder talks, or maybe more of my kind of heavier work when I'm in that phase, and I try and maybe think more about kind of planning and kind of longer term sort of stuff, or reflecting on what I've done so far and what I want to kind of do later on. And as well, then helps me manage my energy, so I'm better able to kind of explain to my partners, to my friends, I say partners plural, my partner, that I would be feeling low right now and I maybe just want to go for a bit more of a nap, or I'm going to be a bit tired and maybe I don't want to go for that hike on the weekend, I want to do something else. So just kind of helps you kind of recognize your patterns, and it's going to be different for everyone, and then you can kind of manage things around that as well. I did get a couple of questions. So the questions that I got was kind of how long I've been doing this. So I was saying, yeah, and on the last talk before I got taken down, that I'm actually not sure the exact years. I think it's like 2.5, 3 years that I've been doing it, and I started just by, I've actually been doing it longer, because I used to start by just putting a little emoji in my calendar back before there was kind of tracking apps. I would put, and back before we had the blood emoji, I'd put like a red dot, or one of my friends would put a volcano, which I thought was great, so I kind of would do that as well, just kind of mark day one, because I used to get asked by the doctor and I wouldn't have a clue, so I started doing that. And then I started with Fitter Woman and I think Natural Cycles in around the same time. So Fitter Woman is a great app that they give some great recommendations around training, nutrition, where you are in your cycle, but they don't track, say, the other biomarkers that I like to track, such as your body temperature or things like cervical mucus and other kind of fertility awareness methods, biomarkers that you might kind of want. So I also started with Natural Cycles as well, which did use your temperature and track that and kind of help confirm whether you've ovulated, based on whether you get that rise or not of the temperature after ovulation. And then, so I was kind of using the two of those for a while, and then I started with my own tracker, which I'll talk about now, but then I started using the FEM tracker. So I'm becoming a FEM teacher, which is a fertility awareness education and medical management coach. So I've started using their app just to get more familiar with it and kind of understand, again, just kind of, I guess, like engross myself in their methods. And I quite like it because it does use those biomarkers like days bleeding and cervical mucus changes and stuff like that, but you can also track your symptoms, how you're feeling, add notes, and you can also put in your BBT. It doesn't use the BBT, which is that temperature change, but I'm fairly familiar with it now that I can kind of see and recognise those changes and what they mean. So that's what I'm using at the minute, but I also have, say, with my clients, what I use is a kind of tracker that I made that's a combination of all the above, because that's what I do. So I help people look at their cycles from a health point of view, but then also kind of tracking that over training, tracking that over their nutrition, how they're feeling, what their sleep is like. So I've kind of made this tracker that's a combination of all of those, and generally speaking that is what I would use, but at the minute I'm using this kind of combination of the apps, and specifically more the FEM teacher app. That was another question then, what ones would I recommend using? So, Fitter Woman, and I think these other ones on your devices, I think, and again, I could be wrong, so if someone knows about it, correct me, but I think they just go off your, how many days your cycle is. They kind of work off an estimate and kind of guess at it. They don't necessarily confirm whether you're ovulating or not, which for me, I think is a big indicator of overall health, and whether you can kind of helps pinpoint where you should be training with regards to your phases as well. ones that do confirm kind of ovulation or look more to that are things like natural cycles, Fem, I think Daisy is another one that uses your temperature as well. Temp Drop, I think, is another one that you can use. It's like a little device that you can wear rather than taking your temperature every morning. And then the Clio is supposed to be good as well, but I haven't actually used it, so I can't really speak to it. But I think that's kind of, a lot of people tend to like that one as well. And then the final question I got was, do I find it time consuming? So generally no, it's just kind of part of my day-to-day routine now. So I take my temperature in the morning, and then I come back in the evening, and before I go to bed, when my little bedtime alarm goes off, or my phone turns grey, which is my reminder to go to bed, I just enter in all that info. And some days I might want to write loads, other days I might just like put in the basic things, which is my temperature, any biomarker information, kind of like my energy, or like how I was feeling, any symptoms, kind of like that. But yeah, it's just kind of part of my bedtime routine now, and it really doesn't kind of take that much. When I'm doing it across the different apps, yes it does, but generally when I'm kind of doing it in my own tracker, just the one tracker like Fem at the minute, it doesn't actually take that long. It's just, again, just kind of building that habit, so it's part of my kind of bedtime routine now when I do that. But yeah, so that's kind of all the reasons why I track my cycle, and why I encourage my clients to track their cycle as well, whether they're kind of working with me from a personal training point of view, or maybe from a more kind of overall female health point of view. But I will be going into a lot more detail about how to track your cycle in the workshop that I'm doing tomorrow, which is for Saturday Strong. So you've probably seen me post about it, but everything's going to support Women's Aid. So obviously a really great charity, really important right now. But yeah, we'll be going into a lot more detail about how to track those biomarkers, the different kind of levels that I classify them as kind of, basic, intermediate, advanced. Like, you can choose what level or what sort of method suits you better. It's donation based for the tickets, so you can just kind of donate as much as you want. You can donate €1, you can donate €100, you can donate whatever you like. It's recorded as well, so if you can't actually make it tomorrow at 10 a.m, you can just watch it back within a week after we have the session. Yeah, it's going to be great. So I think it's going to be really in depth. It's not going to be talking about how to adjust your training or your nutrition around that. That's kind of other talks that I do. This one's mainly going to be focused on going into the depth of your cycle tracking. And if you have done one of my workshops before, I actually haven't gone into this level of depth before, because we were trying to cover so much. So this one's really just focused on focusing on how to track your menstrual cycle and the different sort of methods that you can use. But yeah, that's me. And hopefully this one will post now, or at least that I could save the video. So if you joined in twice, thanks for joining the first time, and thanks for joining in this time. And I'll hopefully see you all on Friday, or tomorrow, Saturday, when Music Talks today. But thanks so much for joining. I'll see you later.